being able to touch their souls and having them. Oh, wait a minute.
Wow,
we've been invaded. Who's this?
Let's
Who the
go.
hell invited him?
What's up, guys?
How you doing, man?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jeff character, I've known him for over 30 years. That other guy to his left or his right or whatever, that guy I've known even longer.
Believe
it or not.
That dude doesn't even look 30 years old, bro. He doesn't even look 30 years old.
He looks amazing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
It's not fair, bro.
Look at this freaking guy. He came to my sister. My sister's wedding was in 2018. This guy could barely fit through the door of the reception hall. Like, that's how big he was at the time. You didn't know this. Well, you knew. You were there too. Yeah, but I guess because Jeff is always bigger. He's always the biggest guy in the room.
Yeah, I never took
He didn't really notice.
Way, yeah.
To me, though, I knew him. I've known him when he was smaller. When Chris was smaller, I knew him. So when he showed up at the wedding in 2018, it was like, wow, like he's he's been having fun. But now, dude, look.
Yeah,
tell us.
And
I know something Jeff doesn't know about your progression, because we had a conversation a week ago and you filled me in on things I wasn't aware of. So just spill the beans, man. Tell us all.
It's funny because I think it's part of like the aging process. As you age, you remember periods of your life through different vehicles, and a lot. It could be music, it could be like a movie, it could be maybe a special memory. So like that period, I've always been obsessed with my weight, and I hated the fact that I had gained so much weight. But I religiously would weigh myself, no matter if I was in shape or if I was heavy. So like at your sister's wedding, I was 275 pounds. And that wasn't even the max. The worst was still to come. So December 2021 was when I weighed my heaviest. I was 355 pounds. I was just
Did you hear this, Jeff? Did you hear this? Dude, did you hear this?
No way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Did you hear what he just said?
No way.
Okay, everybody, just so you know, just so I fill in, Jeff was 354.6 pounds when he started a weight loss journey with me, where he lost 66 pounds in less than a year. So Chris, the guy next to him, was like half a pound heavier than that at his heaviest, which blows my mind.
Yeah, and I used to watch a show on TLC because I kind of related to it. It was called My 600 Pound Life. Yeah. And it's basically a show about morbidly obese individuals who are like 600 plus pounds. And once I was in that range, I knew like the next exit from the next like a stop for me was 400 pounds. Because once you're at 355, it's like clear runway to 400. So I like, it wasn't like, I can't remember exactly, but honestly, it really felt like I wasn't eating bad during the day. Like I felt like during the day, I ate pretty strict. As a matter of fact, I probably didn't eat that much, but the problem was later on, like when I came home from work, I would just binge, and then, normally what happens after you binge, you want to take a nap or go to sleep. And that's how my nights would end. And long story short, December 2021, I weighed my heaviest. And I really thought that there was no hope for me. So based on that show, what I learned from that show, these individuals would get a weight loss surgery where it's a laparoscopic surgery where the doctor would cut out like 80% of your stomach, and basically it would force you not to eat. So I was like, all right, well, I definitely don't want to hit 400. So that's going to be my nuclear option. And, and realistically, you can't just go and get the surgery. They make you, for insurance purposes to qualify, they make you go through like a checklist of, let's say, 20 or so items. A lot of it's psychological testing that you have to do, meeting with a shrink. So I was like, all right, I started the process. And I actually ended up completing about like 18 or 19. Like I tell people, I literally had one more checklist to go, and then I would have been cleared for surgery of June of that year, which would have been 2022. But at the same time, when I went to get do the checklist for the surgery, I went through like I forgot what it's called, but it's like a fat doctor. Doctors who specialize in gastric bypass. But my own doctor, simultaneously at the same time, he told me in December, he said, hey, you know what? If you're not going to go fix your sleep, don't come back. And he had told me many times before, hey, you got to go get your sleep checked. You got to go. And, I never did. And finally, in December 21, he told me, if you're not going to listen to me about the sleep, don't come back. And at that point I was, pre-diabetic. I think diabetes, to be declared diabetes, is like you have to be 6.5 on the A1C scale. And I was like right there, like we're talking about 6.3 or 6.4, another 0.1, and I would have been declared diabetic instead of pre-diabetic. So finally, I was like, all right, well, I might as well go get my sleep done. And I was familiar with the process because in 2012, I can tell you exactly how much I weighed. I was 230 pounds. I had started to increase. And just to backtrack a little, in 2009, I was 180 pounds, like 30-inch waist and everything like that. But so from 2009 to 2012, I gained 45 pounds. So when I did the sleep study in 2012, again, to be in compliance with insurance, they make you take a take-home, like a contraption that looks like it almost reminds me of like the straps of a book bag, but it's got like the mechanical mechanism on it. So when I took that in 2012, I think I used it for like 2 or 3 nights, and then I sent it back to the doctor, and they called me on the phone and said, hey, you're approved. You can stop by and pick up your CPAP. So I stopped by, I picked it up. I probably used it for 3 times, and I was like, you know what? I'm never, ever using this again because, it's hurting my sleep. And I told Fran, it's the worst decision I've ever made in my life because it created a decision single-handedly took me from a guy who's a little overweight to that high weight to 355. So now in December of 2021, when I did the same test again, I took the take-home test. They called me, but this time it wasn't to say, here's your CPAP. They said, hey, you know what? We need you to come and spend the night and do an overnight test in our lab. And I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, like this cannot be good because in 2012 they said, here's your CPAP. Now they're saying I got to come in. So, that's part of it. Like when you're like super overweight, you don't really want to go to the doctor like out of fear of what you're going to hear. You probably sense it in your head. Like I would feel tingling, like tinglings in my like feet, and I'd be thinking I probably have diabetes. This is before, so one of the reasons I never really went to the doctor was because I didn't want to hear what he was going to tell me. So anyway, I did the sleep test, and I told him, hey, you know what? The reason why I didn't use the CPAP in 2012 was I had a contraption like this that was over my face, and it was too intrusive, and I didn't use it. And the tech wasn't even the doctor. The tech said, hey, you know what? Thanks for telling me that. I'm going to put a nasal cushion. So it's the same thing. You still wear something, but instead of having a big contraption like that, there's like a nasal cushion that goes under your nose. So I spent the night. That next morning, they were like, you have sleep apnea, like to the worst degree. You have severe, you stop breathing. I don't know how many, like it was 98 times a minute or something like that. It was some like really high number. And again, it scared the hell out of me. They said this time we're not going to give you a BiPAP, or we're going to give you we're not going to give you a CPAP, or we're giving you a BiPAP. And I was like, what the heck is that? If you saw it, you would think it's a CPAP. It looks exactly like a CPAP, but the mechanism for how air is blown, I think it's constant versus variable. And again, don't hold me to that. You could probably Google the difference between a BiPAP and a CPAP. But in 2012, I got assigned a CPAP, and now in 2021, I got a BiPAP. So I started using that BiPAP, and man, it literally changed my life. Because now I wasn't waking up with headaches. I wasn't waking up feeling super groggy and tired. I was waking up with a little bit more oomph in my step. And that sole decision there led to me being able to become more active. So, and again, I know timelines almost exactly. So so I didn't start working out until September of 2024. So from December of 2021 to September of 2024, when I joined the gym again, I just walked. I did a ton of walking, and I started out small walks with my dog, and then the small walks, as the years went by, I just turned into multiple walks a day with the dog a lot of times. And we would just walk and walk and walk. And that decision. So now keep in mind, I only had two or maybe even one more to do on that checklist for the surgery, which is that June, right? So like about 6 months later. So just by having that sleep and becoming more active, over the next 6 months, I dropped like 60 or 70 pounds organically just from doing all that walking, and it wasn't even a lot compared to what the type of walking I ended up doing as the years went by. That was like crazy walking, but that decision alone helped me drop like 60 to 70 pounds. So at that point I was like, well, I don't need to complete this checklist for the surgery, because again, if I could avoid surgery, and the thing about laparoscopic surgery too, is you're left with permanent scars from where the robot goes in. I think it's like 6 or 7. So it's easily identifiable to me, at least. If someone doesn't have their shirt on and you see like some, it would probably look like spots to you, and you see like, let's say anywhere from 5 to 7, like immediately I would think, he had surgery. He had that weight loss surgery, the gastric surgery. So, long story short, I didn't end up getting the surgery, and I just, through the use of my CPAP, I was able to just become more active. And it's crazy because, me at least, I didn't put a high importance on sleep, and I didn't realize how powerful of a thing it is, because when you sleep, your cells and your mitochondria goes through their repair process. And that's like so important because the mitochondria is the power plants. I don't know if you used to watch that show, The Incredible Hulk, the series back in the 80s. But the reason why he was able is the gamma radiation like sped up his mitochondria and it turned them green and popped them up with all the muscles. And I'm using that as an analogy. That is our power source. The body's power source. So, imagine your power source only operating at like half or like 20% or not even nearly its potential. It's just like, it's kind of like running like an old 1980 Toyota Corolla, how's that for you? It's like
I know how bad they run.
A trip to New York in like a Toyota Corolla, and expecting to come back in one piece. That's a lot of stress on that car,
man. Take that shot, dude. That's tough.
So again, that's what.
I'm not even going to fight back on that one.
Yeah, one time I was giving a presentation to like a CEO, and I said, "Hey, you know what? On the outside, your organization looks like a Corvette, but the engine that's underneath is a Chevette." You remember that car?
Chevette. Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what's happening. When your mitochondria, when you're not getting your sleep, your body's not able to
Yeah.
repair itself. So you could look at someone like Fran, and he's got the Corvette. You could tell clearly when he's wearing a tank top. But people that are bigger, they've got that Chevette engine, or the Yugo. For people, So that is that's how powerful sleep is. And I didn't realize it until it wrecked me. I was at the point where I was telling Fran I couldn't do full walks around my block with my dogs. This is like, in that December, like that year, that summer of 2021, we went to Baltimore, and my lower back was killing me. It would, like, I had to stop to rest, and I just couldn't be like an active father. I couldn't be an active husband. I definitely couldn't like fulfill a lot of my duties as a husband. Because again, like I was running on that Chevette engine. So everything across the board, you become that engine of the Chevette. So whatever the output of a Chevette is, that's what your output is. You're not. Your
Yeah.
body is not a high performance machine. And that's what you want to get it to doing. So I started working out in September 24, and it took me to like another level. So like September 2024. So let me rewind a little bit. In June of 2024, I was like 240 pounds. So once I started working out with weights again, a lot of the principles that I learned from Fran's IncrediBody program, I split up my sets the same way you taught me from 30 plus years ago, and I would just like roll it out. That took me to the next level. So at that point, again, here's a car analogy. Maybe from that point, let's say in June of 2024, I was the equivalent of like an SUV. But once I started working out, man, wow, it took me to an entire different level. I don't know if I could show you. Let me show you a picture of the guns really quick.
Oh,
See
yeah.
that?
Look at that. Look at that, man.
Dude.
It's
But again, man,
fantastic.
it's from working out a lot.
Yeah.
Fran would always, even Razor Ramon told us that one time, you got to do your preacher curls.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I learned is of is is pretty much exactly what's in your program, the IncrediBody program. That a lot of the workouts you taught me, the old school workouts, I did, and along the way, I just fell in love with the gym. The other thing too is that prior to that, for the most part, my entire professional career, I was in IT sales. But I made a drastic job change in June of 2024. That's how I remember my weight, because I did the interview while I was on vacation in OBX. And I remember when I took a before and after picture. Towards the end of June, I was like 237. But I started I found myself like buying clothes that were tighter, but to the point where, I totally forgot to tell you what I did. So I talked it over with my wife, and I made a big career decision to leave technology and move into healthcare. And that was more part. I did that for my mental aspect. So there's a lot of aspects I feel that goes into you getting to that performance engine that you want to become. You have to do something for yourself that you like. Don't settle for like second best. Don't let people tell you can't do anything. If you're unhappy, your happiness is important, because if you do something for money or for whatever reason, you're not going to be a happy person, and it's going to have a trickle down effect that is really going to disrupt your entire way of life. It's going to make you a worse husband or boyfriend. It's going to make you a worse father, versus if you're happy. So I think they all work in unison, I've been working out. I fell in love with the gym again. I love working out now. I've probably taken workouts to the extreme. So I still work out, but as you can see, behind me, I have my gi hanging up there. So I do jujitsu 3 times a week at night.
Yeah.
And then lately, over the past 3 weeks, I joined like a group fitness class outside of my gym that I do like 3 to 4 times a week. So it gives me
wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
You got
But
me
again, yeah, it's a lot. And people ask me, "Wow, you're spending a lot of time and money." But hey, this is your body, man. This is you. This is your performance engine. You can go cheap on it. You could put the cheap gas. You could buy the track auto parts. But at the end, you're gonna get what you put into it. You know what I mean? So I feel like you have to take care of your moneymaker. It's the greatest machine you will ever own in your life. So you will get out of it what you put into it. And if you look at it as an investment that could radically change your entire life, it's going to be crazy. Like now, like I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. And when I started working out, and this is really the genesis for why I wanted to have this conversation. And when I started working out, I hadn't, like, when you're like super fat, you don't want to be on camera. You don't want pictures. So there's a lot of memories that you only see my wife and my kid in. But, you probably see me maybe like 10 or 15% of those memories, because, again, you don't want to be in front of a camera. You don't want to take pictures. You don't want to take videos. You just feel like a fat slob, and that's how I felt, and that's the way if I felt that way, how do you think I did at work? How do you think I did with my kid?
You acted like one. Yeah.
So like, the slob was always sleeping. The slob was doing that. And, I say that because that's what I did. I slept a lot. I was on the couch a lot. I didn't even sleep with my wife for like, I don't know how many years. At night, she would go upstairs and I would just sleep downstairs on the couch in front of the TV, because one, I didn't want to. I just felt like a monster, and psychologically, I was just going down here, and you can see the progression from 2009 being 185 to December 2021 being 355. That's an exponential change right there, and not for the better. Like, we're talking about drastic different lives, compared to the one. Like, have you guys ever? Are you familiar with the Outer Banks?
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
like-
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I mean, he's
So, like,
more familiar with it.
Yeah, we normally go there on a family trip. So during those years, I would never walk. I would always be at home when they'd go do activities. And, I would go out here and there, but it wasn't to like do anything physical, which that place is like a physical type of place. Like, it's not really like a beach that has a ton of nightlife. It's mainly for families to do like excursions and to be active. So I would always opt to stay inside, and watching TV and let them go do their thing. I would never go swimming, because I was too ashamed to take my shirt off. But like last year, we would stay at different places. So like Outer Banks is pretty big. So last year we had never stayed in Kerala, so we decided to stay in Kerala. But the year before we had rented bikes, and then we did it again this year. No, this past summer. So this past summer, I rode on my bike, which was not even a riding bike. I rode from Kerala to Duck and back, which was, I think was like maybe like 25 miles round trip, but on a beach bike, that's that was a big accomplishment for me, but it was such an active
That's insane
trip.
is what it is.
Yeah, I was riding bikes every day. It was such an active trip for me. Last year when I was 237, I thought it was an active trip, but this year, this past summer was even more active. It was the peak active, because every day I was doing something. We actually rented a pontoon boat. So for the first time ever, like when the kids were jumping off and stuff like that, even I jumped off. I could send you that picture. But it just goes to show you, these are things like you just can't do when you're like 355 pounds. You don't want to do it. You just tell everyone to go have fun. But again, I think everything is connected, with that mindset. So it's almost like you got to find a way to reprogram your thought process and reboot yourself. Like turn the computer off and do a reboot, and then just start believing. But you know what? I'm a big fan now of. I'm a big advocate for sleep apnea and the CPAPs. Like I don't work for a sleep company or a CPAP company, but I've learned a lot over the years, and I know snoring isn't normal. So that right there is normally the number one calling card. So like anytime I've spoken to people, I've like spoken to both my sisters, which my sister Nadia, either a week or two ago was the first time she started using a CPAP. But it was because I kept pushing her. Indira is going to go get tested, because chances are if I have it, Nadia has it, my mom has it, there's a good chance that she's got very high probability. One of my cousins in Florida, he was in the same boat, and he started using a CPAP, and he said, man, he's feeling the best he's ever felt in his life. So I'm that much of an advocate for sleep now, because that's how much I believe in fixing your sleep. Because if you don't fix your sleep, it doesn't matter how much working out, it doesn't matter how much eating right you do, you're always going to have that Chevette engine. So I'm gonna take a deep breath, because I know I've been spewing a lot, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Well, if snoring is the primary indication of sleep apnea, then I can promise you one thing.
It's not the primary indication.
It's not, but it is one warning sign that you could have sleep apnea. But I can promise you one thing: there's somebody on this panel who definitely does.
You got it.
I will say one thing. No, not me.
No. That's what I mean. Jeff has
somebody
it, right?
else on this panel. Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, this is what I'll say. After you told me that story, I had already been tested for like 15 years ago or something, 20 years ago. It was negative, but I'm going to get tested again, because I believe, even if you're not overweight, right? I believe as you get older, your risk will go up. If you have sleep apnea, it's going to impact everything in your entire life, because talk to anyone who did not have energy and then on the flip side had energy. It changes everything. When you don't have energy, you don't have the wherewithal to accomplish the goals that you otherwise would be able to achieve. But when you do have energy, when you get up in the morning, you're ready to tackle the day. And when you're in that mode of lack of energy, you don't know what it feels like to have energy. It's like when you're sick. When you're sick, you don't know in the moment what it feels like to not be sick. It like feels like you've been sick forever when you're in the midst of a cold or a flu. Even though you've been not sick most of your life, it's hard to even go back to how it felt to not be sick when you're sick. Same deal when you're suffering from low energy. If you have sleep apnea and you have low energy, you don't even know what it feels like to not have low energy.
Yep.
So of course, if you're sleeping, like if you're on the couch all day, you're sleeping, you're not able to accomplish your goals, people judge you. People will look at you like, oh, this is a lazy bum. He just doesn't have the motivation. He's got to man up. Dude, if you have sleep apnea and your mitochondria, just like you said, aren't getting the energy they need, that's a legitimate reason for everybody watching this video to go out and get tested, because I'm going to get tested. I know that 100%, because if you have it and you don't know you have it and you can do something about it, it could change your entire life.
Yep. 100%. And that was one of the things I told my cousin who started using the CPAP. I was like, hey, remember, this is not your fault, because one of the things is you tend to blame yourself. I would always say, man, how did I let this happen to me? How did I let it get this far? Like, You put all the blame on yourself, and you have to realize that sleep is like a silent killer, and just do a Google search, like side effects of sleep apnea. You will see a laundry list that will blow you away.
It will kill you. It will kill you. It will literally kill you. It will shorten your life. Yeah,
all the 100%. Yeah, heart attack, stroke, cancer, diabetes, you name it. That was one of the things I told him. Hey, man, just realize it's not your fault. You didn't do this to yourself. The silent killer is the culprit. You were just the victim in all this. But once you realize, like this, as you can tell, I love analogies. So, when I was younger, I used to watch the G.I. Joe cartoons. And at the end, they would say, knowing is half the battle, So now knowing is half the battle right there. What you do with this, is what is it's either gonna help you or it's gonna choke you to death, to the point where if you don't do anything about it, and you have sleep issues and you don't do anything about it, guaranteed you're gonna get something, and then death is a guarantee. Death is guaranteed for everyone, but guaranteed that death will be one of the things. Your life's, you will be taking away years off of your life, years with S.
100%, and your quality of life will diminish. And the thing is, if you're going to be alive, you might as well be alive at your peak. Like, there's no reason, if you could do something so simple as to have a sleep study done at your house and then once they determine if you have sleep apnea or not, get a machine to be able to allow you to breathe at night so you can regenerate. If it's that simple, why wouldn't, everybody should do it? There shouldn't be one person that should resist the idea of getting tested. The energy, and even if you have what you feel is normal energy, your normal energy that you feel for you is normal might be a lot less than it could be if you have sleep apnea and you don't know it. So, even you can't just assume you don't have it. You should get tested just to make sure you don't have it. And then if you've been tested in the past and, you're going throughout life and you feel like you're getting older, but your energy's going down, it's like, I'm just getting older. This is what happens to people when they age. Don't assume that. Get tested again. Get a complete blood panel too, to make sure everything else is good. But get your sleep apnea tested, because if you could develop it later in life, even though you didn't have it earlier in life, which is why I'm going to get tested again, because you just never know.
You know what? My wife's grandfather, he's 90 now, but last year he got a sleep test done, and it was determined that he had sleep apnea. So he's been using a CPAP for almost a year now, and he's 90 now. He's going to be 91 in July. So this summer. So again, it's one that should tell you it's never too late. But two, the other thing about it is, like, sometimes I maybe I'll forget to put it on once in a while. But when I wake up, I immediately know, man, I can't believe I forgot, because the way, and I would tell my wife this all the time, I'd be like, man, I can't believe how bad I feel. And the scary part is, I can't believe I lived like this for 10 years, running on like toxic gas or, whatever you want to call it, like, I just can't believe I used to operate this. This was my normal way of operating. Cause like, when I forget to use it, I immediately feel it, when I wake up. And it could be like a combination of certain, things, but a lot of it is, I don't have that energy, so I realized, like, I may never be cured of this. It's almost like a disease, but at least there's a little machine that will give me back, some semblance of not having it, of being able to live with it, a type of thing, And
I'm sure I like wearing the machine.
Oh, what's that?
How's it like wearing the machine?
Oh, well, you know what?
Get used to it, like, after.
Yeah, you 100%. Like, I talked to Nadia when she used it her first night, because I checked up with her, and I asked her, and she was like, I used it, but I ended up taking it off because it didn't feel comfortable. And I told her, hey, that's what's going to happen. Like, I gave her an example. Like, now I sleep on my back, I'm not a side sleeper anymore. I used to always sleep on my sides because I used to sleep on the couch a lot. And I used to use a lot of pillows. Like I would stack them high. Now I use a tiny little flat pillow. If you told me this back in 2021, in December 21, I'd probably laugh at you. I'd be like, oh, there's no way I could do that, because it's just not comfortable. It's not going to. And it's one of the reasons I didn't use the CPAP in 2012 because it wasn't comfortable, But the thing about it is no one likes change. It's just human tendency. Change is hard for humans to accept, but you have to look at the greater good, the end result that you're trying to get to. And if you're seeing that there's an actual blueprint that through trial and error has worked for probably millions of people, then you have to force yourself to change that habit of yours, whatever it is, and realize that, again, what I'm saying, what a lot of people on the internet will say is factual, that, you will get used to it. It'll be hard at first. It will, because you're drastically altering how you've slept for 50 plus years, of course it's going to be, but now I'm at the point where I love that thing. Like I never leave home, like Amex, I never leave home without it. When I'm at the airport, I'll see people now because again, you could spot it comes in a bag that kind of looks like a little laptop, but it's not a laptop. I can tell. But I was just on the plane because I went to Orlando in March, and I spotted people on the plane I spotted two people on the plane with their little CPAP bag. I was like, all right, so people feel the same way. So again, if you can deal with that change, think about it. Like, how much change have you gone through? Change is never easy initially. But once you get used to it, look what we're doing now. Like if you told us this 20 years ago that we'd be using a phone like 50% of the time to do like all sorts of things, you'd probably be like, no, there's no way. Like I was never a smartphone person 20 years ago when they first came out or something like that. I was like, I don't need that. I just need a regular phone. But now I can't live without one of these phones, so that's the thing about it. If you can like train yourself in your mind and your body to really believe that this thing, the mind is a super powerful thing, by the way. That's why like a lot of these placebo tests exist, because the mind is so powerful that if you train yourself, you tell yourself, I think, what do they call that? Like affirmations. What you believe is what you become, positive affirmation. It's the same concept. You have to tell yourself, hey, I'm doing this for a greater good. If not, I'm going to be dead. That's just how it is. But you're not going to have a long lifespan. You're going to be dead. Probably within, again, I was about to say 10 years, but again, you probably know what I'm saying. If you've gone 50 years.
A lot less.
Of living like that, you'll probably be one of those people who you turn on the TV and you hear they had a massive heart attack, or they had a stroke or something happened to them. Where they died. And what do we all say? Oh man, that's too young to die. Oh, he died too young. Like you are in control again. You're at a fork in the road. You could choose to do nothing. That is an option. That's a legitimate option. Or you could say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna, from this, it's not my fault. And from this day forward, I'm going to reprogram myself and I'm going to go down this other road because I like the ending here. It's got that, in the cartoons when you were growing up, those like Bugs Bunny would be at a fork in the road and you'd see one end, it would say danger, danger. And the other end would have it looked like paradise. That's where you're at, and it's up to you. Like if you choose that road of danger, you can't expect not to go through a lot of turmoil and hardships. And like I said, the end result, we all know what the end result, it's going to be a premature death.
Yeah. And if you choose that to go down that road, it ends up being your fault. For the people who don't know about it, have never heard about it. And this is probably the first time a lot of people are hearing about it. And there's a lot of people that don't know about it. The majority of people don't know about it. They may have heard sleep apnea, but have never learned about it. They don't know that they could actually be afflicted with it. They don't know the dangers of it. They don't know the quality of life changes that you experience if you resolve it. And just like you just outlined perfectly, the trajectory of your entire life changed because of that. If you had not fixed the sleep apnea, you would have gotten a surgery done. And so you would have gone through a very, very risky procedure to try and solve a problem that had everything to do with you not having the energy to do anything about it. And then when you finally got that resolved, you were able to do what's necessary to avoid the surgery, lose the weight, improve your confidence, and now your life's better than it's ever been.
Yeah, and that surgery
awesome.
isn't the surgery is one of the options because you have to realize you have options in your life. But if you have sleep apnea, it's not going to go away. It's like hair loss. Hair loss. There's no cure for hair loss. You have options. You could take Rogaine. You could take Propecia. You can go get a hair transplant. You can wear a toupee, or you could just let it go. So you have a lot of options, but the sleep apnea is not going to go away. You can't mask it.
Yeah.
No matter what option you choose, the sleep apnea will exist, and it will probably and again, I can't prove this, but it will probably get worse because I'm comparing it to 2012 to 2021. My sleep apnea went to the point where they said, here's your machine versus, hey, we need you to come in and do an overnight test. And when you go in and do the overnight, they hook up like a whole bunch of nodes all over your body. Let's say 40 or 50 nodes and it tracks your sleep patterns. So it's super high tech. So, that's the point that you're at. You just have to kind of reboot yourself. The mind, again, it's crazy. If you believe in yourself, how far you can go, and again, you're looking at someone who was 355 pounds that thought the surgery was the only thing that could help me. And we'll never know what would have happened with that surgery, but let's say if I had gone down that option, I would have still had sleep apnea. So if I'd gotten the surgery and still not treated the sleep apnea, right, I probably would have gained a lot of that weight back because I never solved the core problem of me getting fat. It wasn't me eating pies and McDonald's all the time. That may have been some of the bad things I did, but I never solved the core issue with me, so no matter what you do. And again, I'd like to think that if I had gotten the surgery, I would have still maybe, developed better habits because again, as part of the psychology, you have to, develop good habits. Oh, one big thing I forgot to tell you I did too is, I started doing intermittent fasting with all that walking. So I started out with, I didn't know anything about intermittent fasting. I think I just saw some people talking about it on social media. So then, the gateway into intermittent fasting, I think someone wrote a book, called the 8-Hour Diet or something like that. But it's basically, you don't eat for 16 hours and then you eat within an 8-hour window. So that actually helped me tremendously while I was going on all these walks. I started out with the 16/8 and slowly I made my window smaller and smaller and smaller where my average window would be between, when I say window, it means the hours. Instead of having an 8-hour window to eat, it would have sometimes I would have a 1-hour window. Sometimes I would have I would say the average is between 3 and 4 hour, but I got to that point. I had to work up to that point. You can't immediately say I'm going to start that. I mean, you might be able to, but for me at least, I had to work my way up to that 3 to 4 hour window. And once I consistently started eating within that 3 to 4 hour window, I was able to close the window, make it smaller to 1 to 2. So at my peak, it was not uncommon for me to have a 1 to 2 hour window that's when I would eat, and then I wouldn't eat again until the next day. And I still do. I still do that. My window isn't that small anymore, but because I'm more or less in a maintenance mode now, and I need calories now because I'm so active. I probably start eating maybe about 3 o'clock ish. I have a protein, based snack. Like today I had 2 pieces of baked chicken and peanuts. I love peanuts. I'm drinking coffee here, by the way, but I drink a lot of water too. But that, I think that goes hand in hand, because remember, I didn't start working out until September of 2024. So what did I do from December of 2021 to September of 2024? It was a combination of walking a lot and intermittent fasting. I feel like I wasn't one of those kind of intermittent fasters who went hardcore. Like I felt like I still ate my sweets. I still had McDonald's. I still had pizza, but I just didn't eat it as much. Mm-hmm. Like I ate it more in a moderation. So like people ask me all the time, oh, did you give up that? No, I actually gave up nothing. All my favorite foods I still ate. I just ate it in moderation within those windows. I wouldn't eat it every day, but I never gave up anything. I was never one of those people, like I didn't want to deprive myself, so I could never be on a strict, like I don't know if you still eat like this, friend, the broccoli, and boiled chicken, like like that's not me. Like I'll never have an 8-pack, because I love to eat, but those habits that I developed, I still enact now. So my average time I start eating nowadays is about 3:00.
Yeah. And, Jeff, when he went on the intermittent fast, when he was living with me and he went on intermittent fasting with 1 meal a day, it was the best results he ever achieved, because the majority of the day is spent with insulin at rock bottom levels. And when insulin is low, your body can use body fat. And obviously it's not getting any energy from food during that time. So it's going to burn body fat at a very high rate. And when insulin is present and it's elevated, it can't burn body fat. It's going to either store fat or you're not going to burn any. So if you keep elevating insulin throughout the day, you're not going to get very far. But if you're able to control it, the more you control it throughout the day, the faster you lose body fat. And he was doing the 1 meal a day with me for a prolonged period. He was losing 5 to 7 pounds a week. It was, like clockwork, and the 10,000 steps. And it was, it's not it's a more of a hardcore method, obviously, because you're having 1 meal a day, your carbs are low, and you're walking 10,000 steps. But if someone really wanted to lose weight fast, it's possible to do. And then once you do lose the weight, then you don't have to stick with that exact same plan. Obviously, you back off. You can do less steps. You can integrate intermittent fasting period where you eat 2 meals a day instead of 1 or even 3. But then you just ensure that those meals are going to work for you rather than against you in terms of their composition, and you'll be able to maintain. So weight loss is absolutely 100% possible without any drugs, without any supplements. The sleep apnea, though, that particular piece of the puzzle, when your energy is low, not only do you not have the desire to exercise, but you also tend to, when you're low energy, you tend to want to opt for poor foods as well, because you just don't have the motivation to do anything. And a lot of times when you don't have the motivation to do anything, you start getting down on yourself and you try to counteract that feeling with what? With junk food. And it just feeds on itself. That literally you're feeding yourself to try and avoid the depression that sets in because you're low energy, and you're feeding yourself with food that makes you bigger, and then that makes the situation worse. So I think that sleep apnea, when you brought it up, something that I thought about getting tested for again, even prior to us talking, but I just let it go. And now that I heard your story, I'm like, I'm absolutely going to contact my doctor and get set up for it, because it's easy to do, and it's going to give you peace of mind once you know the result, one way or the other. Either you don't have it or you do have it, and I can do something about it. And then if you do something about it, it could change your entire life. Like the trajectory of your life could be totally different because of the fact that you solved a very simple problem. That has huge repercussions, but you're able to solve that and then give yourself the energy to accomplish anything.
Yeah, and I actually once every 2 years, so I just did this past May, like I still go in for like that in-depth overnight sleep study, because I just want to make sure like all systems are go. But you know,
that's good.
so no, and it wasn't even it was probably like 3 years after that. So like I just did it again just because, you know, like a checkup, like getting your physical. Like that's the other thing I go to the doctor now twice a year and I get my labs done. You know, so I did end up gaining a little bit of weight back because like I had dropped down to like 189. So I had lost a total of like 165 pounds. But I gained a little bit back. But the thing about it is like I know, like I'm in control now. You know, I'm in control like of this machine, of this power plant, of this high performance. I am in control, so I know how to drop it. You know, so that's what you get. But again, I'm in control. Like I know that's why, you know, I started doing this morning class, you know, this workout class. So people are like, man, that's a lot. That's like overkill. But you know, I'm eating right.
You got the energy for it now.
Yeah, I'm getting quality rest. You know, and I'm keeping up. I'm keeping up. Like I'm keeping up with people that are in their 20s. You know, awesome. I don't feel like my age. You know, I feel
awesome.
Like a lot of times when people ask me, I'll tell them, hey, I turned 40. You know, but I think it's.
And they still can't believe it.
Yeah, that's
they still can't believe it. They'll be like, you don't look a day over 30.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But again, it's what you put into it, man. You know, like could I have done all this on day one? Heck no. So, you know, remember the two things I did was walking, a lot of walking, and the intermittent fasting. And how much time was that from December of 2021? So what's that, like 2.5 years to September 2024? Is that about 2.5 years? So I didn't start working out again until September of 2024. You know, so and in September 2024, that year, I didn't do any jujitsu or morning classes. So I had to get to a certain physical level where now in jujitsu's like pretty much all sparring. So I'm sparring with young lions, you know, who are just trying to either pin me or make me tap out. You know, it's an unbelievable workout. If you haven't tried anything like that, and you know, I love it. You know, I get hurt. You know, I get banged up, but you know, I love the fact that I'm so nimble. You know, and again, I'm constantly upgrading the machine. This machine is a better version of the one from last year. You know, this one's doing all these things. So if like we faced off in like a UFC match, this machine now would beat the me from last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't be a contest.
I think it beat you from 30 years ago.
Right. Exactly. So that's where you always got to look at things, man. You're constantly upgrading, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's not your fault. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts with that, you know, decision up here to say, hey, you know what? If he could do it, you know, I could do it. You know, this guy was about to freaking get the freaking weight loss surgery, you know?
That's
if he could do it. And again, like I talked to my wife and, you know, she told me like, you know, I wasn't a great husband and, you know, what would happen to me was divorce because I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good father because I wasn't putting the time in.
So you were also, that was also impacting. I mean, obviously you said as far as your deeds as a husband and you were sleeping on the couch and you were lazy and all of that. You just didn't have the energy. But that impacted your marriage in a substantial enough way that it was on the rocks. Like it was not looking good.
Yeah, I look at pictures and honestly, I can't even believe she stayed with me. Yeah. You know, because like, man, if I show you pictures of us together, like people would be like, wow, like that guy must be like super rich or something for her to be with him, you know, because it just didn't make sense, you know. But again, like, you know, now that I know, I love her even more because she stuck by me at my worst, you know, and you know, so a lot of the things
I wish they all did.
Yeah,
I wish they all did.
She was pushing me for the longest time to try to work out and stuff, but it would never. I just wouldn't have the energy, And again,
Yeah.
that's why I told my cousin, hey, it's not your fault, because no matter how much you get pushed, if you're not solving that core problem, it's futile. You're gonna,
Yeah.
no, it's not worth it. So it all starts with that. But again, there was nothing special about me. It was just, I believe, like, I think about it. I was about to enact the nuclear option, which was that weight loss surgery. So that's how desperate I was. I was like, all right, if it worked for these people on TLC, then it worked for me. But, even if I had went that route, is what I'm trying to say, you have to believe inside of you that you can have a better future. If you don't have that belief and you've just given up, it's game over.
Absolutely.
And that's how much the mental aspect means. You have to believe that brighter days are still ahead. Your best days are still ahead. You have to like truly believe that, and once you start believing and kind of like, it sounds cliche, but like almost like loving yourself, because a lot of the times you tend to just come down too hard on yourself. Like, man, and I would say that to myself all the time. Like I said, I would blame myself for all this. I would tell myself, man, how did I let things get this bad? And then you go into depression, and depression is like another show, that, we probably don't have the time to do, but that is like a show in itself about depression.
Yeah.
The
We'll
depression
definitely
is real.
do one.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do one, because Jeff he just mentioned to me the other day, we should do one on depression. We can all, talk about that, because you two have a lot of similarities, just in challenges that you've had in life, things that you've been through, knowing you both as well as I do. It's amazing. I think that you can learn from one another, and you absolutely, with the way that you're at, Chris, where you're at in your life, and the fact that you were able to put yourself back together the way that you did, that's a truly inspirational story that I'm sure Jeff is benefiting from just listening to it, because he's right where he's at, and he knows damn well that he's going to be headed down that path again, to achieving his own physical best. So that way he can not only feel good about himself physically, but also improve his health and well-being. And the sleep apnea information is valuable for everybody, including us, to get tested and see where we're at, because you never know. If you're in that position where you have it and you don't know it, my God, like that in and of itself could flip the switch to achieving things in life that you never thought possible. Because then when that energy is there, and energy just is literally the foundation of accomplishing anything. If you have the energy, if that's there, then the mental wherewithal that goes along with that, you just are indestructible, absolutely indestructible. But when that physical part's weighing you down, and you don't have physically, you just don't have enough to offer it. I don't care how much mental energy you can try and put forth towards achieving a goal. If the physical is not there to support it, you end up collapsing, and you might take a 1/2 step forward and then 2 steps back. So yeah, that's so important to have that test done, man. So important.
Well, that's why. No, that's one of the. That's why, like, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this with you is one. I got to commend you for even putting out content on this subject matter, because I just never see this. Like, I wish if someone had pulled me to the side 12 years ago, not 12 years, in 2012, and said, hey man, don't kick your machine away, use it. Or I wish if I had access to content that I could have looked at myself. And that's why, like, you putting on this type of content really will change lives. Like, you can't have that IncrediBody if you have portions of yourself that needs fixing, and I suspect, I don't know the number, but I suspect there's a high population of people with a sleep problem, some permutation of sleep apnea that is silently wrecking them. And, definitely 100%. keep continuing to focus on that, because again, that right there is a niche in itself, because I scroll a lot too on like social media. That's how I actually I found out you had a YouTube channel. That's how I found out about Jeff. But, you know, because I was like, he's got a YouTube channel, you know.
And then he saw him. He's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was like,
this is a practical joke.
Wait, I think I know that guy. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I would say, hey man, keep putting out that content. Depression's a big one too, because I think it goes hand in hand. But I think one of the things about you that I've always liked is that you've always been like an innovator. You know, it may not be the most popular thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And you creating content, you're positioning yourself as a center, almost like a center of excellence that, you know, is going to help a lot of people. Like I would say probably millions of people, get the help that they need, you know, and that way they can ultimately have that IncrediBody, you know, but you can't have it if you don't take the steps to solve that, problem.
100%, man. Thank you for the kind words. You know, I love you, dude. I appreciate the fact that you're able to share this story in such great detail, and the fact that you were able to do what you did. And you know, regardless, look, you had to make choices along this path. And I always talk about choices. You know, you had the opportunity presented to you to do certain things, and you decided at that point where you were at your lowest to take that path, to do exactly what you needed to do. You took each step as it came, and look at you now, man. It is like you could have still been 355, or it could have been 400. You could have gone the other way. You could have gone to the 400. You could have been divorced. You could have been just so depressed you couldn't even work anymore, like on your bed, on your couch, just unable to do anything. You know, the depression could have been just astronomically high. That could have been you if different choices were made. But you decided to do what you had to do. You got the test done. You got the result. You wore the machine. You didn't abandon it this time. You wore it. You wore it consistently, got some energy, went out there, started walking, did what you could do, didn't go overboard with anything in the beginning, just did what you could do, started losing weight, started gaining momentum, started gaining confidence because you saw results, continued down that path. And now you're a totally different person than what you were just a couple of years ago. It's like absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And you know, for your viewers who may not have like a happy ending, maybe they got a divorce, you know, maybe something bad happened. They lost their dream job. You know, this may sound a cliche, but at the time that you're going through this pain, it may seem like, hey, the worst thing in the world, like the world is over. But believe me, you know, I'm sure people have told you this when you were younger, but it's so true. The best is yet to come if you believe that. You know, if you believe it, the best, you're going to get a better job. You're going to get a better, partner. You're going to get a better life. At the time you're going through this stuff right now, it doesn't feel like it. But if you can commit to yourself, to loving yourself again, and committing in here to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start upgrading myself. I'm going to turn myself. I don't want to be a Chevette anymore. I'm going to turn myself into a Mercedes. I'm going to turn myself into a Ferrari. You know, have you ever seen a Ferrari that's parked on the road? You know, all these people looking at it. You know, again, that is what you can become. Turn yourself into a Ferrari. You know, the only thing stopping you is you.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. It all starts here. Everything starts here. It starts and ends right here.
And keep in mind, and keep in mind, I fine tuned it. Like I don't think I'm a Ferrari now, but I think I'm approaching that.
You are compared to 3 years ago.
Definitely. But like, because I was able to take these steps, then I was able to utilize, your workout principles to slowly start taking myself from like the Acura. You know, I turned myself into a Mercedes. You know, I drive an Acura, so I'm not an Acura. But that's the thing. The workout is, you should always keep that in mind. That's almost like the finishing piece, the touch. And right now, if you're in a position where you're overweight, you probably have no energy, no motivation to work out. So just start with, but what you can do today, as in right now, you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to not eat for 16 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use an 8-hour window where I will eat, you know? And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to walk some extra steps. You could start
Extra
that way
steps.
and
Start slow.
Slowly build up to the point where you can start working out with the weights. Because again, it's changed my life. The weight portion, it's taken me to like another level. You know, the way I look in clothes, you know, me being able to perform in these classes in jujitsu, like I wouldn't be nearly as good as as I am if I didn't have the strength aspect. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. You know, like I said, I commend you for putting this content out because it's going to help millions of people, you know, who are going through. And like I said, I hope you do follow up with the depression show because that's real. Like I still
100%.
Depression. Yeah. I still think of myself. Sometimes I'll have moments where I think of myself where I remember the hurt, the pain, and it's hard to escape that. You almost have to compartmentalize it. Well, for me, at least, I compartmentalize it and you just lock it away. But sometimes that box opens up. And I tell people it's probably my most formidable, my most powerful opponent that I've ever faced in my life, depression. You know, and I respect it. I know it exists. But what I've done is I've compartmentalized it and then I've locked it. I put like chains around it. So it's locked up. But sometimes I go through a moment where something would trigger it. But I think, again, that's another show. I don't even want to go. I'll go there right now.
Oh, we're definitely going to come back and do that one. 100%. There's no doubt about it. That's another topic that needs to be covered. It's one that both of you have a lot of experience with. I do as well. So there's a lot to be said, on that subject. Jeff, you are here. You've been here the entire time listening to this guy. He's telling his amazing story. Speak. Tell me what's on your mind.
I mean, it's tough act to follow, bro. But I appreciate you sharing your story, dude. That's beyond inspirational. You know, you've motivated me to check into the sleep situation, see what role that's playing in my life, if any. And sounds like Fran thinks that it does have a significant impact in my life.
I've already diagnosed you just to save you the visit. Just get the machine. Dude. Just start wearing
yeah, dude. If you got an extra one laying around, just hook me up, dude. I'll pick one up on the way. But I mean, to hear, I had no clue that your weight got where it did, and then to see you looking so damn good, dude. Right now, man,
he's looking like a GQ model.
Freaking proud of you, man. You look great. And
if GQs even exists anymore. Yeah, I'm like dating myself like worse than he is.
I mean,
I think I dropped a lot of work. I think I dropped a lot of terms that dates me. So
yeah, well, hey, dude, that's the only terms I can relate to. So if you would have said anything after that, those decades, I wouldn't have had a clue what you were talking about. But go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm just proud, bro. I'm just proud.
Yeah. We both
spark
are.
Now. That's what I want you to have, the spark. You know, it might be a baby spark, but whenever you have a spark, you kind of have to blow it and make that spark bigger. It'll grow. You know.
Now, Jeff has started.
I believe. I believe it.
Am I right, Jeff? You started to walk. You started to walk again.
Yeah.
You've started to do daily walks. Yeah. So he's integrated walks back in. He's going through like a really rough period because he's in the midst of a separation leading into a divorce, and then he's gotten his money situation is the worst it's ever been. He needs representation to be able to fight for what's rightfully his in this divorce. So it's a really ugly situation. So that has been weighing him down mentally, and kind of put a pause on focusing on anything diet related to any great degree. But he started the walking again, and he's gotten that, and just trying to minimize any damage that could be done between now and the time he resumes. But like you're right, you're ready. You're going to be ready at some point in time to resume to like continue the path forward.
Facts, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like,
And the thing is,
you've gotten me to a point where mentally it's connecting the brain to the heart, to the body, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the soul. So like all of it, you got them connected now. I disconnected my heart from a lot. So now it's connected again. And I don't even know, like the coping mechanisms was food. And like, that's not going to cut it anymore. That's not going to work. That's not going to be the answer. My brain understands that's not going to satisfy what I need anymore. Like that's not the answer. So, and I wasn't even close to being there before. So like now that's a great part of the victory, but like, there's still challenges. But like, like you've gotten me a long, long way through this journey already. And the mental part, like you said, that's the first part. So, I have no doubt that the victory is on the way. It's just, that's the biggest hurdle. And, I'm looking forward to a time when I have the resources to devote to eating exactly what I want, when I want, and being in complete control that way. That's not the case right now, but hopefully, in the near future it will be. And, but what I can control, I'm integrating that right now. I'm doing more, activity, on the regular right now, dude, in the last couple of weeks even. So it's just one step at a time, even, where life passed, I would, seeing adversity this strong, would have just put me in the tank for a while, and I just balled up and, stayed to myself. But now I'm fighting through it, dude. I'm fighting through the resistance better than ever. And so, yeah.
Well, we were just talking, Chris, before you got here, that this guy yesterday was feeling a bit down, and normally his old self would have ordered a few Domino's pizzas and some brownies on the side and anything else he could get his hands on to try and drown his sorrows in that moment. But he went out and helped somebody, talk somebody through situations in their life for an hour and a half, and that made him feel great. It made the anxiety dissipated because he put his focus on someone else, and he really got a lot of satisfaction for helping somebody who was in need. So that in and of itself is an example of a choice. You can do one of two things. You can feel sorry for yourself and live in that moment and then try to drown out those emotions with a coping mechanism that's going to do you harm, or you can turn the tables, put your focus on somebody else who needs your help, and then feel good about what you just did.
Yeah, and that tells me you have the capabilities. You have the tools to get to where you want. So like, it's natural to feel sorry for yourself. It's natural. You're going through a bunch of like devastating, painful stuff right now, but keep in mind, you have to learn how to block it out. It's hard, but look at the alternative. If you don't focus on yourself now, you're doomed.
Yeah.
You're doomed if you don't focus on yourself. Now, you have no choice but to focus on yourself first. It's not a matter of like, hey, I'm going to wait for this, I'm going to wait for that. If you don't focus on yourself now, it's over. That's a wrap. That's tough love, but it's going to be a wrap. But, so like you have no choice. I think I saw like a saying that sometimes you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have. But, that's where you're at right now. So the best thing that you can do right now, even if it costs you in this separation, things that you want and you may not get, even if you have to give certain things up in order to focus on yourself. Because right now, if you don't focus on yourself, you're not going to be good to anybody. So you need to focus. You need to put yourself in first place now, and say, hey, you know what? I need to focus on myself, because if I don't focus on myself, I'm not going to be able to go where I want. I can't be a good father. I can't be a good person to myself. It's gonna be bad news for you. So I would say, hey man, now's the time where you got to block it out, and you got to be selfish, and you got to start focusing on yourself now, because the revamped version of you is going to achieve things that this version of you will freaking never ever believe, you know?
Yeah,
and
no.
that's the way you got to look at it. But if you keep like, I'm not saying you're doing this, but if you keep like saying, oh, the world's against me, I don't have this, I don't have that, but you know what I mean? That's not doing what we talked about. You know what I mean? The world isn't a cool place. The world's going to eat you up and spit you out. But, you know, you have to work on yourself. Make yourself tougher. Turn yourself into an Acura first. Let's set that goal. A year from now, become an Acura. And then maybe the next year you'll become a Mercedes. Then the next year you become an exotic. You know, that you'll see how your life will change. And I depicted, I think, various angles through activity, through jobs, that, you know, my life has kept improving. You know, even though when I was leaving IT, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm walking away from my professional sweet spot. This is all I've known, but, you know, and now I'm doing something totally different, you know, and I'm really good at it. You know, I never would have thought, if you had told me this 2 years ago, I never would have believed you. I used to tell my wife, I can never do what you're doing. I can never do that. You know, now I tell her, and if she was here, I would tell you now. I'll tell her, hey, you know what? I think if they drop me and you in a new, like a brand new, like city, and said, hey, go get the business, I think I would beat you. I'll pace you, you know, because it's the belief, you know?
Yeah.
But again, you're not going to get that. You're not going to achieve anything if you don't be selfish and say, hey, you know what? It starts today. You know, things are tough. Things are hard. But if you don't change, it's going to get worse.
And you've been in that. I can tell, Chris, just the way you're talking. You've been in that. You've been in that frame of mind. You've been where he is. You've been where he has been. You've been in a situation where you felt like there's just nothing left. And you know, I'm looking around and you're like, what's next? Like, it doesn't feel like there's anything worth.
I thought I had diabetes, and you know, my instinct wasn't to go get it treated. My instinct was to stay away from the doctor.
Yeah. You know? I mean, it's a bad place to be, man.
So, like, you know, I kind of, like, in a sense, I kind of like accepted my fate, you know, and that's like the kiss of death when you do that. You know, you're still a really young guy, you know.
Yeah.
You have a lot of,
dude, he's got a lot. Oh God.
You have a lot of peak years to go through. We all do, but you know, but it's too soon. It's too soon. But, you know, like I said, my wife's grandfather at 89 started using the CPAP. He didn't have to. He's 89.
Yeah. Usually at 89, you're done. Like you're not even here at 89.
Yeah,
but I mean,
he's going to be 91 this year.
89, you're like, man.
Yeah. He's going to be 91
you're like,
this year.
I'll do whatever I want, but that's good. Yeah. That's a smart move, man. It's like, why not do whatever you can do to maximize your life while you still have the chance? Before you go, I have two small favors to ask. Please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It only takes a second, but it tells YouTube this mission is worth sharing. Over 91% of you still aren't subscribed, so join the IncrediBody community today, and let's transform bodies and minds one person at a time.